From NBC News, this is Today with Matt Lauer and Meredith Vieira, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
The dreaded midlife crisis, does it happen at 40, 50, 60, or not at all? That's coming up right after this.
Well, this morning we're kicking off a new series. It's called Midlife Today. Whether you're turning 40, 50, or 60 at some point, you've probably found yourself wondering, have I hit midlife? And is it time for a crisis or a celebration? How is it that we mark midlife? For some, it's a snazzy new sports car, or maybe even a revamped body and look. Some go as far as creating a new family and a new life. It's the so-called midlife crisis, but how often does it really occur?
A relatively small percentage of people who do experience a crisis. From our national study of midlife in the United States, the estimates were between 10 and 20%.
If I had to define a crisis, I'd say it would be trying to be 25 again, and that's not where I am.
Like many men his age, David Blaine's life has changed dramatically in the past few years.
I have been separated for going on 2 years. The kids have grown up and moved away.
So he decided to mark his 50th birthday with a challenge.
Climbing Kilimanjaro has been on my radar for a long time. Mentally, it was more of a challenge than physical. I had a panic attack on the very first night on the mountain, and I realized that I can't say, you know what, I don't want to do this. I'm going back down to the car to drive away. I'm in Africa.
He persevered and 7 days later reached the summit.
The feeling getting to the top, it really surprised me. It was overwhelming. There were tears in my eyes.
For Marcia DeSanctis, it was her 40s that were a bit bumpy.
I definitely had a midlife crisis. I went back to graduate school. It took my head and body out of my very comfortable bubble of home and family.
By the time she turned 50, the married mother of two was ready for some reflection.
You're a parent or just working your butt off. You forget maybe about what brought you here and what made you the 50-year-old that you are.
So the former Russian language major and network news producer packed her bags and traveled solo to Russia, a place she had visited often when she was younger.
I just needed something that was going to almost punctuate this moment. And for me, it wasn't a big party. It was really something more about just very personal to me.
She documented her experience, part of her second career as a writer.
I love writing, and it is kind of what I always hoped to be doing.
It's an endeavor she feels her younger self could not have taken on.
You spend your parenting years telling your kids there's nothing you can't do. And so why don't we take that to heart?
Vivian Diller is a psychologist and co-author of Face It, What Women Really Feel as Their Looks Change. And Dr. Ish Major is a psychiatrist and author of Little White Whys, A Woman's Guide Through the Lies Men Tell and Why. Good morning to both of you. Vivian, you think this is less about chronology. It doesn't really matter if it's 40, 50, 60. It's more about some moment that most people experience. Explain that.
Yeah, well, there's an uh-oh moment that often signals this dreaded midlife crisis. But, our culture has changed so dramatically since this term was first coined that it doesn't accurately describe what most people are feeling these days. See, the emphasis has shifted. Instead of it being about how little time we have left, we're actually thinking we could have, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of us. And how do we want to make the adjustments in our life so that those years are more fulfilling? When
you deal with a patient-ish who is going through an moment or a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it, do they generally have common reasons for it happening?
They do. And a lot of it starts with the physical decline. They wake up and they're starting to feel those aches and pains. They're not as sharp as they feel like they used to. They're feeling tired, and they're looking in the mirror. They're not realizing or recognizing the person who they used to see.
When you talk about crisis versus celebration, is it as simple as if you're happy with your life, your family, your career, you're probably going to celebrate that moment of midlife. If you're unhappy, unsatisfied, you think you haven't accomplished what you want to, you're going to go through some kind of a crisis.
Sure.
Anytime you are confronted with the passage of time, there is a moment that can feel like a crisis. It's what you actually do at that time that describes us as having a major life crisis versus a transition. You know, the meaning of crisis actually originally was about choice, about decision making. We don't think any longer so much of the crisis of some reckless behavior. It's a thoughtful process we can actually engage in.
Is it smart for people, kind of like these two people in the piece here, to plan for the moment? In other words, not wake up with the uh-oh moment, but think, okay, I'm approaching midlife, whatever my definition of it is. I should start to think about what I want to do.
Absolutely, and don't wait until you wake up and that moment is upon you. We know it's worse for folks who have an avoidant type of personality. They haven't thought about or planned out that future transition well, and that crisis really sits them hard.
It's tougher on this generation because we are the been there, done there generation. We expect more than our parents did and our grandparents did.
Right. The definition of happiness now is that we have higher expectations for our marriages, for our careers, and for what we call middle age, which is kind of moving forward because of life expectancy extending. But we expect to have fulfilling, vital lives until the end.
And let's hope we will. We will. Vivian, thank you. Ish, thank you very much. Appreciate it.